Minister Chan.
Mr. Chairman, let me first thank all the members for your questions and many useful suggestions. I also like to thank many members who have spoken on your kind words on the work that MTI has done over the last 1 year. Mr. Chair, over the past week, much has been discussed about how we should or should not use our reserves and how we can, we should, we want to do many more things for various groups in our society. However, we must not lose sight that first and foremost, we need to earn our keep. For this and for future generations, under the shadow of COVID-19 pandemic. We are still trying to get out of the most serious recession since independence. We are not returning to a pre-COVID world. Even if our GDP returns to a pre-COVID levels quantitatively, we will have a qualitatively different economy then. The share of sector and industries will be different. The type of products and services that we produce and trade with the world will be different. The skill sets of our people required to make a living will be different. We must start now to build this new economy. I will be frank. There are many challenges and downside risks. Geopolitical tensions remain a concern. Technological disruptions are accelerating. The COVID-19 virus is mutating. The rollout of vaccines across the world is uneven, and this will complicate the country's recovery from the pandemic. All countries have spent an extraordinary amount of fiscal resources to stabilize their economies. Many, if not all of them, will contest for the fiscal revenue and possibly leading to tax policies that will distort investment, production, and trade. The rules-based global trading order, underpinned by the proper functioning of the WTO, is straining. Global supply chains are being reordered and reconfigured, not always for economic reasons. Mr. Liang Eng-hua and Mr. Desmond Chu asked how we can remain competitive and relevant amidst these disruptions. The short answer, we need to turn these challenges into opportunities. We must be a safe harbor for capital, talent, and ideas in an uncertain world. We must be connected, trusted, and resilient as a node, both physically and virtually, in order to serve different markets in a bifurcating and fragmenting world. We need to embrace technology, especially digital technology, to be the disruptor and not be the disrupted. We need to master digitalization to transcend the constraints of our size and geographical location, where mastery of data can lead to increasing returns to scale. And we need to leverage on our small size to pivot faster and to respond more nimbly than our competitors. Over the last 6 months, MTI has visited our companies every week to see how we can work with them to overcome the immediate challenges, but more importantly, to seize the opportunities going forward. These plans have been widely reported in the media, and I will not repeat all of them today. Instead, I will draw together 3 broad strategies that we must execute well, consistently, and coherently. First, strengthen our position as a global hub for business and technology. Second, entrench ourselves as a critical node in the global value chains to make us hard to displace. Third, build real and unique capabilities in our enterprises and workers so that they can compete in a more globalized world. Mr. Liang Eng-hua and Ms. Foo Mi-ha asked how Singapore has performed as a business hub amidst COVID-19. We have done credibly so far. We have attracted, in 2020, 17.2 billion worth of fixed asset investment and 6.8 billion in total business expenditure. These are votes of confidence and faith in Singapore. We should be proud of how we have responded, but we must press on. The ease of digital connection, collaboration, supervision, and even execution will redefine the role of hubs for businesses. Lower value-add activities will increasingly be offshore to remote working sites as they are no longer constrained by geographical boundaries. Work from home means work from anywhere around the world. Competition will never be local, but always global. However, the world still needs high-quality business hubs for high value-add transactions and trusted collaborations that must be executed via physical interactions. For Singapore to be this global class of the few high-quality, high-trust business hubs, we will need to create an environment where we distinguish ourselves. And this is how we are going to do it. First, with clear, transparent, consistent, and coherent legal and policy frameworks to allow businesses to mobilize capital, aggregate talent, and protect intellectual property. Second, with progressive rules to enable new business models to thrive. Third, with superior networks that gives us denser and more secure connections with the world, allowing global businesses to operate out from Singapore. Next, with a mix of global and local talent to serve diverse markets across the entire globe. And finally, to entrench critical parts of the R&D value chains so that businesses will include us in their innovation networks, even in the depth of any crisis. These are the reasons why we are investing heavily in the development of our local talent, the attraction of global talent to complement and reinforce our local talent pool. This is also why we are aggressively strengthening our physical trade and digital connectivity, including expanding our network of free trade agreements and the new generation of digital economy agreements and partnerships. This is also why we have spent and will continue to spend on our R&D, from basic research to translational research for commercialization. And this is also why we have heard from MinLaw that we will continue to strengthen our IP regime from valuation to arbitration and assessment, so that we provide a complete ecosystem for businesses wanting to put their IP in Singapore. We must get all these enablers right to strengthen our position as a global business hub. With all these enablers in place, we are confident that our reputation as a trusted and efficient place to do business will distinguish us from the competition. But we are not complacent, and we must never be complacent. We are always very aware of the stiff competition that we are up against. Let me now touch on our second strategy to entrench ourselves in the global value chains. Indeed, the nature of competition has changed. While quality and cost competitiveness will continue to remain as important factors, other more important factors have arisen. The speed to evolve new products, the speed to penetrate new markets, the resilience of supply chains, and the quality of new ideas, as intellectual capital will increasingly overtake physical and financial capital as the defining competitive yardstick. Ms. Jessica Tan and Mr. Liang Eng-hua asked about growth sectors and how we can seize opportunities in the reorganization of the global supply chains. We are looking out for emerging sectors such as agri-tech, urban mobility, and sustainable urban solutions, as Professor Hun Yen Teck has mentioned. MOS Alvin will elaborate on how we help local businesses venture into the agri-tech sector. But instead of just pursuing new sunrise industries, we also need to pursue critical capabilities needed to anchor ourselves in every industry that we choose to compete in, be they sunrise or otherwise. And that is why our second strategy is to entrench ourselves in the critical niches of the global value chains. Take the semiconductor industry, for example. How much we produce and how much global market share we command now may not be the most important question over the long term. Over the long term, what is most important is whether we have the intellectual property to produce the chips and the intellectual property to build those machines that produce the chips. And moving further upstream, do we have the talent and talent networks to continuously innovate, to improve our processes and quality control so that global companies will want to site their operations in Singapore and create better jobs for our people? These questions apply to high-tech industries like semiconductors, biomedical, and info communications, as much as they apply to precision engineering and even the manufacturing of the humble surgical mask. Recently, I visited various enterprises and research institutes to better understand the new world of manufacturing, to see how they incorporate Industry 4.0 technologies from data analytics to additive manufacturing. A product that used to require many parts to assemble can now be produced as one single part with additive manufacturing, with much less wastage and much greater precision. A product that used to take years to evolve can now be designed and redesigned in days. A production system that used to be put together only after the product design has been finalized is now being put together while the product design is being conceptualized. The speed of evolution of products and production system is amazing, and we need to understand all these changes. The ability to set standards for adoption in a fast-paced market has become critical to a product success. The good enough and fastest will beat the better but slower. There is much that we need to learn and change our mindset in this new competitive environment. Doing what others do at a cheaper price is red ocean strategy. In other words, these are shark-infested waters best avoided. Producing things that others cannot is blue ocean strategy. Here the opportunities abound. Here is where we want to be. Similarly, we can no longer merely be a place of arbitrage. In a globalized world, we will be easily disintermediated and displaced by cheaper competitors or digital platforms unless we can add something unique and of value to others. We must become the exchange that adds value. The value add can be the provision of complementary services or adjacent services, from financing to legal to business syndication. It can also be in terms of verification and traceability in a world that is increasingly conscious about sustainability. Mr. Liang Eng Hua and Mr. Hun Yen Teck spoke about enhancing connectivity and taking advantage of our economic openness. Indeed, our superior connectivity will be a value-add factor in a world seeking greater resilience and diversity in their supply chains. We have here a deep and wide collection of global and local companies. This allows the companies located here to compete as an ecosystem. And I want to emphasize this. We compete as an ecosystem. In turn, our ecosystem attracts more companies to situate themselves here to take advantage of the superior network and the dense ecosystem. Now, this is a virtuous cycle that was hard-fought and hard-won. We must not lose this. If we do the wrong things and damage this reputation and ecosystem, we can quickly lose it all. Wrong things include inconsistent policies on business, taxation, manpower, and talent. Wrong things include sending the world the wrong signals that detract from our intent to enable our companies to form globally competitive teams to compete with the world. We should be mindful. Let me now touch on the third strategy, to deepen our corporate capabilities and worker skills. The IMF already ranks us as one of the world's most competitive economies. Our workers are amongst the world's best. But this is a journey without end, and we must continue to invest in their capabilities and skills. This is why I agree with Ms. Janet Ang about creating a new compact amongst businesses, employees, and the government. We will spare no effort to help our enterprises and workers acquire new capabilities to compete in a more globalized world. We cannot shield ourselves from global competition, but we can and must equip our enterprises and workers to compete globally. Businesses can play a role in this together with government and the unions. We must all play our part to develop the local talent and grow Singaporeans to take on leadership positions. Singaporeans must also be prepared to venture overseas to seize new growth opportunities. These are the correct ways forward for a small economy like us. To deepen our corporate capabilities require an ecosystem approach. We must leverage on our existing strengths in traditional industries such as aerospace and manufacturing, even as we invest in emerging technologies like digital services. We must continue to attract global companies and MNCs with cutting-edge business concepts and technologies to be planted here while we nurture our SMEs to be future global champions. And I always tell our SMEs, stop calling yourself small, medium enterprises. Aspire to be Singapore MNCs emerging, SMEs. Mr. Leon Pereira asked about the grants given to MNCs versus SMEs and suggested to tie a conditional incentive for MNCs to work with local SMEs. I'm glad Mr. Leon Pereira shares our same philosophy. In the last 5 years, we gave around 13 billion to MNCs and 21 billion to SMEs. But looking merely at relative grant amounts versus returns and value adds overly simplifies this picture. First, the relationship between MNCs and local enterprises is often symbiotic. When MNCs here do well, they are more likely to work with local companies, source from them, and have them as part of their value chain and supply chains. We also encourage MNCs to work with SMEs through the PACT program, which supports knowledge transfer between larger companies and local SMEs or startups. And we will do more where it makes sense to. Second, our support for MNCs and SMEs serve to enhance their symbiotic relationship in various ways. MNCs are already best in class in their industry. Our support helps them to bring in new businesses and technology that will uplift our entire ecosystem and create higher value jobs here. For SMEs, we provide support for more fundamental purposes, digitalizing, penetrating new markets, streamlining work processes. As smaller businesses level up, they will also grow to become an integral part of the local supplier ecosystem for MNCs and beyond. Ms. Jessica Tan asked how we can enable active participation of local businesses in emerging sectors. We have different schemes to help companies, big and small, because their needs are different. For large enterprises, our goal is to help them compete globally by providing access to superior trade networks, R&D, and talent networks. We will help them become regional or global champions by providing growth capital and support for commercialization of R&D. For medium-sized enterprises, our goal is to have more of them and bulk them up in order to compete in niche areas beyond Singapore. This is why we embark on the Scale Up Singapore, or Scale Up SG, and Enterprise Leadership Transformation programs to build deep capabilities for them to compete on a global scale. We also aim to help them internationalize by bringing them together to compete overseas with programs such as Global Connect at SBF and the Southeast Asia Manufacturing Alliance. Schemes like the Market Readiness Assistance Grants also help them to penetrate overseas markets. 2M Tan Si Leng will share more on the support available for the different enterprises. for small and micro enterprises, our goal is to provide them with shared and digital platforms to improve their productivity and efficiencies by accessing shared capabilities from design to sales to management. MOS Yanling and Alvin will share more. And I want to say something. Our schemes are constantly evolving. We are never shy to do away with old schemes that are no longer relevant, no longer needed, or less relevant. And we will constantly reinvest our finite resources into the schemes that do the best, the most for our enterprises. Mr. Chairman and members of this House, let me now reiterate where I left off at the beginning. We are not returning to a pre-COVID world. How we make a living will change even faster in the days ahead. Let us help our people focus our minds on the new forms of competition ahead, for it will be tougher, it will be more global. Let us not focus on the wrong issues or try to resist inevitable change, or try to protect what will be made irrelevant and displaced in time to come. Ultimately, our ability to do many of the good things that we have said in this House rests on our ability to earn our keep and make a living in this more globalized, more competitive world. And we must never forget that. So let us face up to the competition, do the right things, help our enterprises and people acquire a competitive advantage to distinguish ourselves from the competition. COVID-19 is said to be the crisis of our generation. This can also be the opportunity of our generation to distinguish ourselves, to lay the foundation for the next generation by winning new investments and creating jobs, better jobs for this generation and the next. And I have every confidence that if anyone in the world can do this, Singapore and Singaporeans must be amongst them. And we will emerge stronger together from this crisis. Thank you.